Vaatan koos teiega YouTube'i esosa. Okei. The murderer in front of my house's wall. Killer minu ma ei oska seda tõlkida.
I was 12 years old when this happened. My grandmother just got home from the hospital because she had a stroke. She couldn't go up to the second floor of our house, in which her room was located. So my uncle, my little brother, and I decided that we were going to sleep in her room for a while. Before this day happened, my aunt bought a new air conditioner, so the old one would be removed. And of course, there was a hole in the wall for the air conditioner. I covered the hole with some kind of small box before working on the wall, so the air wouldn't come in. Anyway, back to the situation. My uncle and I were playing a mobile game at 3 a.m. when this happened. We played for about an hour or so until my little brother had fallen asleep. While I was paying attention, I suddenly heard a small scratching sound coming from the hole on the wall where I covered it with a box. Its sound was like someone trying to remove it with something. However, I just ignored it at first, because I thought it might be a cat trying to remove the cover. After 5 minutes, my uncle heard the sound and he whispered in my ear saying, "Did you hear that sound?" I said, "Yeah, I heard it too, but maybe it's just a cat. Forget about it." After that, we had forgotten about the sound and we just played again, until that moment. All of a sudden, my uncle quickly put down his cell phone and started to search with the flashlight. "What's wrong?" I asked him, but he pointed his finger on his mouth and pointed it to the window. It was quiet outside. "That's weird. I heard someone's footsteps." He talked to me sitting back next to me. I tried to say that it's nothing, but this time I heard those footsteps. Someone was outside walking around with a...
Footsteps tähendab nagu kuuled, kuidas keegi teine, kuidas keegi nagu kõnnib. Nagu need. Okei, mul on voodi peal.
Creaking sound. So we eventually decided to look for it, opening the box cover. But before we could get closer, my little brother began to scream. We were shocked by that, but then we just laughed, thinking our reaction was silly. I talked to my little brother and asked him what happened. He said that he had a nightmare. We laughed again, much bigger this time. Bump! We abruptly froze when we heard loud footsteps from a roof away from us. My heart dropped. "What was it?" my uncle said with an anxious voice. We then stayed away from the wall and started panicking. I started to think that it might be a thief who was trying to enter our house. What if he would try to kill us? How were we going to stop him? What should I do? However, despite all my worries, nothing happened after that. There were no footsteps anymore, but my uncle and I had to stay up until the next morning, shivering
Võta. Jooge kohvit, siis olete kauem üleval.
Together. A few days later, my grandpa covered the wall with cement.
Kuidas nii kiiresti?
And that day, we were watching the local news and we heard that one of our neighbors, who lived right next to us, had been murdered. They also reported that the suspect has not been found, so the cops were struggling to arrest him. We just couldn't believe the news. We just watched the news with our mouth open. That moment became the worst nightmare of my life.
Ma saan aru. Ta tahtis neid tappa, siis ta ei saanud oota. Miks üldsegi tüübid tahavad teisi tappa, kui nad isegi ei tea neid? Ma ei tea, nad lihtsalt tahavad vangi minna.
The whole life. What if I dared to try to remove that small box to see outside on that day?
I don't know. Oi, ei. Okei, me vaatame veel tema videosi. Jah, see on selline kanal on tal, ma olen üpris palju seda videosi juba näinud ja üpris paljusi. ta tundub päris huvitav. Can you stay? Selle nimi on Kas sa suudad oota
Hey guys.
Kas sa suudad olla öö üksinda koos surnute kehadega?
Hey guys, today I would like to introduce you to a new channel. This, my friend, asked for my help and I gladly accepted, because these videos are literally creepy. Part was free that people never seen any of the videos that are on her channel.
14,
You guys are interested in this channel. Enter the link to the description below, and if you like it, subscribe for more content.
When I was 14, I'd been studying in a boarding school for about 3 years. We used to stay in each of the hostel's rooms, which were separated by bamboo walls. My school was very small, and we had lots of rumors about ghost stuff. Speaking honestly, many of the students had experienced paranormal activity, including me. So I remember that day was just a normal day, as usual. I was with my friends, and one of my seniors told us a story about this incident, and this sent shivers down my spine. A few years ago, one male student had passed away abruptly due to some kind of disease. His parents lived quite far away from the school.
Oota. See voodi. Seal on 5 Oota, miks seal jalg on?
When the school informed about his sudden death, they said they would be arriving there about the next day. So until then, the school had the responsibility of keeping the dead body clean for a night. For your information, the state, especially the village where I lived, was pretty backward. The infrastructure, like educational facilities or hospitals, was not so efficient, not even in the cities. So it was decided that the body would be laid on his bed in the boys' hostel with the other students. I know it doesn't make any sense, but they did. Though many of the students were paranoid about sleeping with a dead body in their room, they had no choice, so they just had to put up with it, especially to the boy whose bed was right next to the bed where the body was laid. He was terrified, so he tried to request the seniors to change place with him, but they all refused. So he gave up and returned to his bed, and then everyone went to sleep. However, when they woke up the next morning, they noticed that the boy was missing. They reported to the teachers, and they acted fast. Luckily, they found him near a paddy field where he was in the company of some laborers. However, when the teachers approached him, they were surprised by looking at his condition. His eyes were swollen with a tear. His feet were dirty and covered with mud as he had no slippers on. The laborers explained to the teachers about how he ran like a mad person in the middle of the night, as if he was being chased by someone. So they came up to him right away and stayed with him for a night. At first, he didn't say anything when they asked what happened, but not long after, he told them what he had experienced last night. He said that he was asleep for quite a few hours when he suddenly jolted and awoke, feeling a strange discomfort as if someone was watching him. He tried to ignore it and force himself back to sleep, but then he heard the creaking of the bed from the corner next to him. And the next was the sound of someone's footsteps. Shaken with fear, he did not dare look to his side. In an adrenaline rush, he bolted up from his bed, jumping down, and just ran away from the hostel. He didn't know which direction he was running to or how he even got out of
Okay.
school campus.
Sorry. Saisin vaadata. Korra mulle tundus nagu mingi 3 jalga oleks olnud. Korona. Aga miks ma pidin seda ütlema? Nüüd see video vist kustutatakse.
but he just continued to run and run until he felt a sticky feeling on his feet. That moment was when he had a little bit of an instinct to look back, and what he saw was the figure of the body wearing gray pajamas, standing on his 2 feet. The dead boy, whose body should have been lifeless, was running after him. He screamed in fear and ran away again. When he noticed the flicker of flames miles away, he sped up, shouting out loud. Luckily, 2 of the laborers heard his call and they approached him. So he had begged for them to stay with him, and they stayed up until the next morning. When he finished talking, all the teachers were in disbelief. Most of them just thought that he had a hallucination, so they
Demon.
escorted him back to the school. However, the real horror was realized when the dead student's parents came to collect his body in the evening. For when they took off the thin white blanket from his body, the boy's legs were all covered in mud and paddy grasses. Coincident or not, his lower pajama was tainted with soil, and his feet with paddy grasses matched the description of the missing boy's story. Everybody in that room had to shudder with such fear for a while. So that was the whole story that my senior told us. After that, we couldn't go to the bathroom alone, and often went in groups. Now, I came back after my graduation, but to this day, I will never forget the feeling of fear that I had.
Okei. Okei, see oli väga lahe ja huvitav minu arust. Ja siis... Oota, mida?